Hi, I'm Dino Tripodis, and welcome to Whiskey Business. Tonight on the show, a whiskey that's tied to a director, that's tied to another director, which is tied to a movie, which is tied to a series about a movie, and, ironically enough, our guest has almost nothing to do with any of those things. Marc Heuck, tonight on Whiskey Business. Hi, I'm Dino Tripodis, and welcome to Whiskey Business, the podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. I need to emphasize that a little bit because we've discovered over the years that there are other whiskey business podcasts out there.
There's a whiskey business restaurant for crying out loud.
There's a whiskey business restaurant for crying out loud, said Hansberry. You've actually been there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different whiskey business entities. So Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis, I am your host, is the one that we want you to pay. You can watch the other ones if you'd like to, but every once in a while I like to emphasize that we are this particular whiskey business, and people have suggested that we change the name from time to time. I don't know what it would be. Boozer Losers.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Would be a good one, right? Yeah, that'd be one.
How about Biznass, like sass?
Oh, yeah. How about Rye Philosophers?
Rye Philosophers.
Yes,
that's our guest, Marc Heuck, who always takes it a step up to the more eccentric.
He's very sharp.
If you will. But here's the deal, people. I like movies, and I like books, and I like a lot of things, and I think I'm fairly knowledgeable when it comes to movies and books. But then, do you ever come to a point in your life where you think you know a lot about film, and then you meet that guy who just knows so much more than you do and goes so much deeper into the minutia of the film and the director and the period and so forth and so on. Same with books. I like to read books, and I know who my favorite authors are, and I know a little bit about them, but every once in a while I come across that guy who knows what, that John Steinbeck's shit actually was curved. I don't know if that's true or not, but, whatever the case might be. And then when Hemingway would vomit after a fucking drinking spill, it would be multicolored. Guys like that. And I salute people like that. I do. I admire that. I don't get envious. I just remember that every once in a while, what I'm trying to say is know your place is what I'm trying to say. And when other people are around you that know more, learn from them, which you will tonight, as it is a pleasure to welcome back one of the most knowledgeable people I know in respects to film. Woo! Marc Heuck is back with us.
Here, here. Har, har.
A pleasure, sir.
Oh.
And he brings with us a very interesting whiskey, a guest bottle, which, as I mentioned in the intro, I will explain here in just a moment, but a pleasure to have you back, buddy.
Well, thank you. I've been looking forward to the time when I can return to the podcast, and this is just beautifully auspicious.
Yes. Everybody look up auspicious.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not in agreement.
Oh, it definitely was.
Oh, harumph.
Yes, it was. It's auspicious. Yes, it is.
And my huzzah to your harumph.
See?
This is really highbrow.
Yes,
We're
it
really
is.
stepping right into this.
That's what I'm about. Culture, culture, culture.
Let me get one thing out of the way first. You still writing your blog?
Yes, I am.
The blog is?
The Projector Has Been Drinking.
The Projector Has Been Drinking. And is the Projector still drinking?
Oh, yes.
Attaboy. Attaboy. I'm glad to hear it. And the blog you've been doing that for quite some time now.
Yes, I have had the blog since I'd say 2009.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as regularly updated as it was at the beginning, but whenever I put something there, I'm very, proud and chuffed to put it there, so it carries some heft. I'm not gonna waste your time with filler.
And the only reason that the blog maybe is not as updated as frequently as it was in the beginning, because in the beginning that's what you had, the blog, and now you've done and are doing so many other things that the blog is just one of those things that you try to keep up on.
Yes.
But you have many other things that your talents have now traveled you towards and that you accomplish on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And we'll try to get to all of those tonight. including once again something that is tied to this bottle, but that and just a whole bunch of other stuff that has nothing to do with what you do for a living, but it has a lot to do with who you are as a friend and an individual. So we will cover all those bases. But first, Hansberry, a little bit of business before we start.
Business. Well, I was going to say, I know my role. When you were talking about John Steinbeck, I thought you were going to say John Stamos. So I was... That shows you.
I can see where you get.
Yeah, that's where I was.
Yeah, no, yeah. Have you ever read John Steinbeck? Were you ever forced to read some?
No, but I've read a lot of John Stamos, and I tell you what.
Yeah.
Oh man.
He yeah.
That op-ed he did in People about 5 years ago was great.
Yeah.
Oh, did John Steinbeck know the difference between a leg shaved with a razor and one shaved with neat?
Probably not.
Yes.
I don't know what that means either. Hey, Whiskey Business is your favorite podcast. Not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. Thank you for subscribing to us on your favorite podcasting app. And you've been listening to us for 5 years now. You're
or maybe
our friends.
you're just listening for the
Or
first
maybe,
time.
yeah.
And if this is not a great first impression, we
Go back.
apologize. Go back and listen to about the other 200 episodes
Just
that
do us
exist
a
prior
solid
to this
if you
one.
haven't already. Just smash that subscribe button. Push a 5-star review. Doom, 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 doom. And then write a review. I'm
Go
doing
ahead,
my
no,
sound
man,
effects.
No. Go ahead, go on.
And
He's on a roll.
And share with your fellow podcast enthusiasts, because honestly, that's really the easiest way that you could help us out and spread the whiskey business love.
And I want to thank the Evergreen Podcast Network for being our host network, our family, if you will.
That's right.
They've brought us into the fold here in the last year or so. And we can't thank them enough.
Evergreenpodcast.com. Whiskeybusinesspod.com, where you can find all the archived episodes and writings and videos and whatnot. Plus YouTube, Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. That's the unedited version of the
one
podcast
that,
on video.
Yeah, this is Greg Hansberry, our audio producer, and that thumb is John Whitney, the man who makes all
I don't make edits very often. Only when people ask me.
Yeah, when we have podcast remorse, which I have a funny feeling
We're
might be
gonna have
tonight
some time.
before it's
All right.
all said and done.
So there you go.
Okay.
And all the socials. Do the InstaWeb
All
and
the
the
socials?
Facebook.
I'm very excited. Whitney, make sure I'm getting this. Is it in there?
Yeah, it's in there.
I'm very excited about this particular whiskey that was brought to me when Marc Heuck was passing through town and just stopped in to visit. He brought this whiskey with him. This is the Dorothy Arzner Straight Rye Whiskey from Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So
Now, as far as I know, not available in Ohio, right? You got this from where?
I had to have it shipped in from L.A.
From L.A. Okay. Very nice. And Dorothy Arsner was one of the first, if not the first, I don't know if she was the first, but one of the more prolific female directors in Hollywood back in the 30s.
What she specifically was the only woman making movies in the studio system during the sound era.
Right.
Because in the silent era, there were a lot of women directing silent films, and then when sound came in, they kind of got pushed aside, and she muscled her way in.
Not this one. In fact, her first sound movie was appropriately enough one called Manhattan Cocktail. If I recall.
That one is lost, but yes,
But
that is.
that was her first one, right?
Well, I
In the
want to
sound
say her
era?
first was The Wild Party with Clara Bow, which would just be
nice.
as appropriate for
Yes.
this.
Wild
Best.
Party.
Mm-hmm.
She's also responsible for launching the careers of Katharine Hepburn and Lucille Ball. I found that out.
Mhm.
That's kind of fascinating. And when she decided to get out of making films, she taught. And who did she teach? Who did she say, listen, kid, you got something? When he got discouraged and wanted to get out of filmmaking?
Bradley Cooper.
No. John Stamos. No. Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, that makes sense.
Crazy.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
At USC, right? Was it USC?
UCLA.
UCLA.
And that's why Francis Ford Coppola had this affinity, this affection to create this particular 3-year-old straight rye whiskey that we're going to enjoy this evening.
And
So,
again, I'm a little behind here. So this is like Coppola's. He owns a distillery, or is
He
it
ons
just
a
named after
winery.
him?
Yeah.
Okay,
I've been
This
to
is
that
the
winery. It's
only, I
beautiful.
think, spirit that he produces.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Does he distill it, or he just get a company to do it for him?
As far as I know,
I don't know the ins and outs. I do know that this is that the water is used in this. Comes from the Napa Valley spring water that they have on the property.
I've been
which
to
is
his.
taking this down to I believe 90 proof straight rye whiskey that we're going to enjoy this evening. Heuck and I I was referring to Mark as Heuck. That's what I've called him for years. Heuck and I tried a little bit of it, and I said we're going to save it until you come back and do this podcast. So, it's a 3-year straight rye whiskey. If I recall correctly, it's got some lovely. I made some notes from the first time, and refresh my memory. But you'll probably pick up some notes of chocolate in the nose. I mean, some cherry, a little bit of cherry in the nose as well. And taste wise, I can't remember. So we will find out again now. Yeah.
It's kind of fruity. It's fruity too. That's a little bit of fruit.
Cherry. You put some of the fruit in there, and the cherry.
It's got a crazy finish. I don't even know what to.
I like it.
A little
Smooth.
leathery and smoky,
Almost like lemon.
like lemon. So I get the cherries.
Citrus.
Yes. Yeah. There you go.
I get the cherries, and it's good. It's good, and I wouldn't expect anything less than good from Coppola putting out something out like this. So yeah, and it's interesting that he credits and pays tribute to Dorothy Arzner. So has Heuck. Heuck, you did a whole podcast on this lady.
Yes. Me and I have to give credit to the lady who instigated this at the tail end of 2020 on Twitter. I had been following this wonderful, energetic young film fan named B. Peterson, and she talked about starting her own podcast network to look at films that she thought were not getting a whole lot of recognition in the podcasting world, because there's 5 dozen podcasts about the current releases or about all the directors that everybody talks about.
The Shining.
And was looking for who wanted to get involved, and I said, I will go with you, Jerry Maguire. And after she was a little dumbfounded, like, you really? I know your pedigree. Because B just, I think, is in her early 20s. Just a wee thing.
Child.
Yes, I mean, in comparison to this salty dog
Real
here.
hairs here.
Yeah.
But as we started discussing who to devote a podcast to, we decided upon Dorothy Arzner, because I learned about Dorothy for the first time right here at OSU. I was taking a women in film course in the late 80s. Props to my professor, Marlene Longenecker, wherever you are. And she had one of Arzner's films in the curriculum, and I didn't properly appreciate it back then, but it grew on me over time. And once this idea came up, I said, yeah, let's dive into this woman's CV.
And how many episodes of the podcast are there?
I want to say there are 20.
20.
Wow.
So we got a hold of every movie she is credited with directing, which survives, because some of them are currently lost.
Manhattan Cocktail is lost?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, not all of them are readily available to the home viewer. There's only like 3 or 4 that have gotten physical media releases. A few others periodically pop up on Criterion's channel. And the others, we had to go through the dark web to access to,
Nice.
but we looked at every single one of
Most
them.
people are like trying to find porn and dates.
Yeah,
You were
yeah,
trying to find obscure Dorothy
Coink on the
Arzner
dark web
movies.
to find Dorothy.
Well, no. B found the films. I have to give credit. I have to give credit to her. It's her podcast. I was the crusty but benign sidekick.
Wait, so you did 20 episodes on Dorothy? Like,
Yes.
Oh, wow,
Well,
there you go.
the way it worked was B is taking a sabbatical right now, so I don't know if she's going to hear this, but if you do listen to this episode, damn it, thank you so much. But she started.
Subscribe and smash that 5-star button.
It is her network is called The Screen's Margins and is devoted to, there's like a bunch of other shows devoted to other lesser known filmmakers. Our podcast was called Dance Dorothy Dance because the most famous film that she directed is Dance Girl Dance, which features Lucille Ball
And Maureen O'Hara.
and Maureen O'Hara and
I cheated, guys. I'm on IMDb.
oh, okay. Well, remind me, is it Ralph Bellamy who is the male lead?
Lewis Hayward.
Look further.
Yeah, Ralph Bellamy. Yes.
Thank you.
Steve Adams. Yes.
So, and the novel thing is that we exhausted the readily available Dorothy films that we could get our hands on. So while B was waiting on the bootlegs, we did a auxiliary podcast called Friends of Dorothy, where we were studying films worked on by one of her many female collaborators, and we focused on one named Zoe Akins, who was a playwright at the time and worked on a lot of films for other people, but did a lot of films with Dorothy. So we did as many of her movies as we could until we got all of the remaining Dorothy films, and then we went and concentrated back on Dorothy.
So, question:
Got
She,
it?
They had
she
a
died
plan.
in '79. Why did she quit making films in '43?
She went into stuff. She started editing, and she started doing a bunch of other things. And
Well,
then
she
started
started out.
teaching.
Well, she started out as an editor,
Right.
and then by the late '40s, I think she was just tired of the grind of fighting to get projects made, because she was the only woman making movies in Hollywood, and imagine how hard it was to get any film made at that time, let alone being a woman, also an openly gay woman.
Yeah,
Okay.
she was a lesbian as well. But she also said, and one of the quotes that I love about her, she says that men never gave her any trouble when she was in the business. She worked well with men. So I find that very interesting. It's like, and it made me think about things like she obviously carved her own path and led her own openly gay life back then as a woman and a director. I mean, you think what now? No, then.
Yeah.
So let me just sidebar. Do you think it was easier to be a lesbian, a gay woman in the 40s than it was to be a gay man in Hollywood?
I would say it was not easy to be a lesbian in the 40s as it was to be a lesbian in the 30s.
Okay.
Because what has to be taken into account is that when Dorothy started making movies, this is what we called the pre-code era.
Right.
And pre-code movies are racy as hell.
Right.
They're talking about dicey subject matter.
A lot of side boob.
And where she was at the time, that she did the first batch of movies at Paramount. And Paramount in the 30s was the horniest goddamn studio in Hollywood.
God love him.
I shit thee not. Look at any Paramount movie from that period, and you will see the thirst permeating the scenes like that haze you see from a gas leak.
Wow.
I'm going to look him up on my Mr. Skin account and see what we can find.
Look, I've said this before. MGM stars were glamorous,
I'm gonna
but
tell you
Paramount
to stop
stars were
talking.
fucking.
Nice.
Again. That's my second warning.
But yeah, the point is that in the 30s, after the collapse, that there was this kind of licentious behavior being tolerated, or at least, looked the other way upon. That when we say that she was openly gay, I mean, she never flat out declared she was a lesbian, but everybody knew. And nobody made much hay about it.
But she was behind the camera, too. I think it was a lot different for actresses who were passing as straight.
Exactly.
A completely different animal.
And then when the production code came in the late 30s, and everybody started, strictly monitoring what kind of content you could put into a movie, she and Zoe Akins, and Zoe was also bisexual, so they had to get a little more crafty about how they were going to tell their stories and code them. And the culmination, I think, is the final movie Dorothy did is a World War II thriller called First Comes Courage with Merle Oberon, and that movie is loaded with code, because the premise of the movie is Merle Oberon is playing a resistance fighter who has married a Nazi operatic chick in order to get information out of him and feed it to the rebels.
Right.
And in real life, Merle Oberon was an Indian woman who was passing as white. So there's layers on layers in that movie.
No doubt.
But I think that after that, it was a more restrictive climate to get stories told, and I think she just got tired of the grind and decided, I've made my point and do something else, and went on into teaching.
Mm-hmm. And one of those pupils, when we come full circle, Francis Ford Coppola.
Mm-hmm. Because Coppola graciously did an interview for the Criterion Blu-ray of Dance Girl Dance, where he talked about being taught by Dorothy Arzner, and the fact that when he was at UCLA, oftentimes he was so broke she had to buy his lunch.
Oh.
But it isn't interesting that this lady, because if I'm reading the story correctly, Frances was discouraged and wanted to quit and get out of it, and she's the one that said stick with it. She's the one that encouraged it. Can you imagine if it wasn't for Dorothy?
Yeah,
we wouldn't have the Godfather.
Indeed.
Which, like I said, serendipity tonight, because as we're drinking this bottle tonight from Francis that he's put together in tribute to Dorothy, this is the night before The Offer starts streaming.
Oh, yeah, nice.
On Paramount Plus,
Mm-hmm.
which is the limited series about the making of The Godfather, as they're teasing it, the making of the film that almost was never made. So everything is just kind of, all streams are flowing into one river this evening.
And as someone who dressed up as Robert Evans for Halloween, I could not be happier.
And let me ask you that question. Speaking of, did he pick the right studio to be in as far as his life and times go? Did anybody know you were Robert Evans when you dressed up for Halloween, or did you have to explain it? Honestly.
I think there were a few people who got it because the book had been out, and so he'd been on the interview circuit, and people.
The book being the kid
stays in the picture.
Yeah. Great book, by the way.
And plus, I was really staying in character because I worked hard on Hello,
okay,
baby.
when you say you're staying in character, that means you had to actually research the man and his mannerisms and everything else that goes in it. Who does that? Who decides to dress up on Halloween as Robert Evans?
You did that at 10 years old, right? As well, right?
Well, no. At 10 years old, technically it was 9 years old. I sent a story idea to Paramount, and I still have the rejection letter, which I got autographed by Robert Evans.
That's true. Shit! I do remember this story. Tell it. What was the story idea?
Very simple pitch. Kiss in Vegas.
Okay.
They were hot at the time.
I would buy that. That's what
I
need to know.
I
Frehley's
literally
birthday today,
had a dream where I saw the commercial on TV. Like, that there was the commercial, there was the logo, there was the Paramount logo at the bottom, there was a credit block, that I dreamt that this movie existed, and I tried to will it into life.
Was it called Kiss Vegas?
No.
Kiss in Vegas.
Yeah, that was the pitch.
And the rejection letter was a standard rejection letter?
Standard rejection letter.
Signed.
Well, no, it was signed by just whoever was there in charge of their
so
story
where's the
department.
Robert Evans signature
It's
coming to
years
play?
later, I'm at a book signing, and I made a photocopy of it, and I asked Robert Evans to autograph it.
Okay.
Nice.
Still.
And I had him sign it. Fuck 'em all.
Yeah.
He didn't say worst mistake. I can't believe we didn't say yes to this project.
And then he stole your idea.
Well, he didn't have as much juice at that point.
Kiss Vegas by Robert Evans. No!
And now it would be made with John Stamos.
John Stamos.
No, we wouldn't do that to you, Hoyt.
No.
We wouldn't do that to you. So, all right. So, what I love about you is that you get so deeply involved and I believe the right word is passionate about all things regarding film, and to take something like this lady, Dorothy,
Mm-hmm.
and to go for 20 episodes on a podcast. I mean, I don't know that many people who would pick that obscure of a topic and run with it like that. And I hope that the podcast is being listened to by how do people find that podcast if they want to find it?
Well, it's on the network is the Screens Margins podcast network.
So film people who are really into film would really
Yeah.
want to would be able to find it and check it out.
Mm-hmm. And I will, like, when this episode drops, I will. I tweeted links to all of the Dorothy specific episodes that I did in a thread, and I'll send that out again, and you can copy the link, and it'll all be in one place.
Okay.
I mean, I would like you to peruse all the other shows that B has done, because she just
sounds
terrific.
she sounds first of all like even though you mentioned that she is young,
Yeah.
she sounds like an old soul. She would have to be
Mm-hmm.
an old
Yes.
Hollywood soul.
Well, I think the wonderful sort of divergence between us is that she's very much into like artistic film. She's done other podcasts on people like the documentarian Frederick Wiseman and Fassbender, and I love trash. So it's we have the sacred and the profane in one place, and also because of our difference in ages, I know all the cultural references that she's not hep to.
Right.
Like one of the movies we reviewed, and it's one of my favorite episodes, even though it has the least amount of actual Arzner content in it, is a episode devoted to the movie Paramount on Parade, which was just sort of all these different directors who were under contract doing little vignettes, basically to beef up, look how great of a studio Paramount is.
Mm-hmm.
And the surviving version of the movie is incomplete. It's missing material. And when we watched it, we watched an even less complete version of it that was, some public domain upload on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we had no idea which segments were the Dorothy segments. So we're just spitballing our way through this thing. But, because I just know all of this movie arcana, I'm saying, this person did that. And, this is a radio show that was happening around that time, and, just filling in all the details. So you're not going to learn a lot about Dorothy in that episode, but you'll learn a lot about old Hollywood.
Wait, so is that all you do in every episode? You watch the movie and you
we
chat
talk
about
about one specific movie each episode.
it? Do you watch it in real time and talk about it, or no?
Oh, no, we watch it first and then we
Okay,
talk
okay,
about
okay,
it.
okay.
Okay, and as highbrow as this discussion has been about Dorothy and the podcast and so forth, here's what I really love about Heuck, is the fact that he can go from highbrow to lowbrow with a blink of an eye and indulge it just as passionately as anything else. you are involved in something called the Showdown.
Yes. The movie Trivia Showdown.
I've watched it.
The movie Trivia Showdown, which is available on the Entertainment Network. What is that called?
I think the Schmodown Entertainment Network.
Schmodown Entertainment
Yeah, it's
Network.
on YouTube.
Yes.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Explain what Schmodown is.
The movie Trivia Schmodown is a ongoing trivia competition that is staged with the theatrics of professional wrestling.
That's right.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
That's
There
right.
you go.
And I am proud to say that the faction I have been affiliated with, Corruption, has won the division 2 years in a row.
Nice.
Bravo. There you go. The
Yeah.
belt is yours.
You got to check it
Well,
out because
the-
they do these pre show kind of like wrestling, like I'm gonna beat your ass. You better just like
Yes,
It's just like the wrestlers do.
we have heel teams and face teams, and I'm one of the heels.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a heel?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
No,
nice.
I'm like I like to say that my character in the Schmodown is like the bitter, jaded version of the movie geek from Beat the Geeks. You know
Okay.
that
You should
the-
think about a cape.
Well, let's footnotes here. Beat the Geeks was a show on Comedy Central that you were also on.
Mhm.
You were one of the geeks. You were the movie geek
Yes.
on Beat the Geeks, which I thought was a great show. I don't know why they didn't stick with that one either, but
Reboot.
yeah, they should reboot it. They could reboot it, and if they do reboot it, they need to bring Heuck back to it. But does your character have a name?
Well, I mean, I'm playing Marc Heuck,
playing
but
Marc
I'm
Heuck.
playing
you don't have a
dark
you don't have a wrestling name though.
they call me the Enigma. You know,
Oh.
Mark
Perfect.
the Enigma Heuck.
That's right, the
Perfect.
Enigma.
The Enigma. That's perfect.
But
You
yeah,
are.
when
you
I
are the riddle wrapped in an enigma, or
That's right.
vice versa.
Look, when I made my first appearance in the Schmodown, we filmed a vignette that was staged like opening the puzzle box in Hellraiser. So, you know, that they were, summoning, this dark creature.
How long have you been in Los Angeles now?
I moved into Los Angeles on February 4th, 1999.
1999. And why did you move to Los Angeles?
I had delusions of selling the next great American screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't happen, but I have had the most wonderful adventure out there, and it's the best thing I ever did.
Yep. And you have no regrets.
None.
None. And I know for a fact that the man struggled hand to foot on a lot of occasions,
Mhm.
out there, and never gave up. Stayed put. Found ways to keep his hand or his foot in the business through his talent as a writer. I told you before.
Mm-hmm.
I told you when you were the young child.
Yes.
What did I tell you 1,000 years ago?
It was all about the writing.
All about your writing. Because Heuck actually started out in stand-up.
I was going to say, you guys met because of that.
Yeah, we met in stand-up. And
Well, even before I started doing stand-up, Dean was already doing stand-up. He encouraged me to get in it.
Right.
We were working on a horror film shoot.
God, we don't want to talk about that. But, yeah, that's still not out, right?
I
Just
think I
for
was
the
on
best
that
of your
too, I
knowledge.
believe,
Yeah,
for a
you
little
were.
bit.
Yeah, you were. There's a lot of people. So was out in our peanut gallery this evening. The Ralph Scott was one of the actors on that
And
film.
Chip-
That's
you
why
worked
you
in
know
that too,
Ralph
right?
Scott.
Yeah.
he
on it too, right?
he that's why you recognize him. That's why there's a little bit of he was in.
We've got Ralph Scott. We've got Chip Cassell, who
Yep.
was in the film program with me.
Yep.
And I wanted to be as amusing as he was in all of the projects that he made in the film program, because I could, I didn't have the means to get to where he was.
Mhm.
So,
Chip made some good ones. That's for sure.
Funny.
oh yeah.
My
But I
facial
always
tones
said,
have
I always
changed.
say because and this and if we talked about this in the previous podcast with Heuck, I apologize, but people did not get you in stand up. There would be moments, and much like everything else he does in his life, the stick-to-itive
He didn't.
nature.
He didn't flap.
No, he never did. He never did. There were times, and I say this with love and respect, there were times where those were the longest 5 minutes on any comedy
Aw.
stage ever. And yet there was brilliance in the words. And I would sit back there and going, these people just don't get it. They're not there. They're here to hear they're here to hear dick jokes.
Right.
And Heuck is taking it up another level.
Like
This was truly, in my opinion, you were too smart for the room.
Like,
you were
what
too smart for the room.
You don't have to give us your material, but like, what kind of?
Well, let me put.
What
let
were
me,
you doing?
Let me put it this way: I was the kind of person who would be on the road, and I'd be in like Dusty Pants, New Mexico, and I would still insist on doing a Gerard Depardieu joke.
Oh no!
I rest my case, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that being the case,
I rest my case.
but I would never do it in a haughty fashion. I would just because
No. Why would you do that?
No, because
why would you?
Because
the
the joke
take it to the next
joke
level?
itself is very simple. Okay, look.
We got to
I
hear
would-
it now. Come on.
Yeah. So my setup would be, when I'm not doing comedy, I work in a theater. I work in an art theater. I like it. I see a lot of unusual films. I saw this really great French film. You might have actually heard about this one. It's the one that doesn't have Gerard Depardieu in the cast.
Crickets.
He is one of the most
I would
lauded
laugh.
French actors out there, yet it must be part of the GATT export treaty that dictates that he will be in every French film that comes to America. But
Oh my God!
I did a little research and I found out that Gerard Depardieu, translated into English, means Gene Hackman. So that explains everything. Yeah, now see how I brought it around?
Yeah.
See how I make it relatable?
That's good stuff.
You see also the genius in those words that were just people just.
Oh my
What
God!
the fuck is this guy talking about? What GATT treaty? What? Oh my God, Heuck.
What was the first joke that people laughed at? You said, "Oh, I can do this again. I'm gonna do it again."
Heuck did. You're right. You did. There were laughter.
Mhm.
There
Yes.
was laughter.
Yeah, I'm saying
Someone
like the
laughed.
first one that landed, and you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this again."
Oh my God. That's a tough one because like the first few sets I did,
It shouldn't be. There weren't that many.
yeah, there weren't any that I could hang a hat on.
Okay.
That it was just my blind ambition that carried me through to the point where I would have something.
Yeah.
I would say I think my first applause bit, where the kind of like a for lack of a better term, your catchphrase bit was my buddy's carpet barn riff.
Remember Buddy's Carpet?
I do remember Buddy's
For those of you who are
Carpet
not
Barn.
from Columbus, Ohio, Buddy's Carpet Barn was pretty much the Reichert of carpets.
They're a big deal.
That'd be the best way to describe it. And for those of you who don't know who Reichert is, but Reichert's huge here in Columbus as far as cars, so it would be the
car
the
dealership.
car dealership.
Well, oddly enough, in Los Angeles, there every so often back when newspapers mattered, there is a huge auto dealer in Los Angeles called Galpin, and they would take out these full-page ads where they would talk about their national rivalry with Reichert.
Oh, nice.
Really?
Yeah, that
wow.
Galpin
Okay.
Ford was the West Coast's best Ford dealer, and Reichert Ford was the East Coast's best Ford dealer. So, and Buddy originated in Cincinnati, so I had to grow up with this clown. But I would talk about, and when I was doing stand-up on the road, I could still talk about the fact that, look, in every market, there's always some local merchant with a lot of money who buys all the TV time, and you see their commercials repeatedly and get sick of them. And mine was Buddy's Carpet Barn. And he's just such this sleazy individual talking about, folks, if the Mills knew just how much I was shaving off the cost of these carpets, they would be putting me in an insane asylum, and just all this disingenuous bullshit.
Yeah.
And
Didn't he appear in a straitjacket in some commercials?
probably.
Yeah.
So So I mused that if he is going to be this obnoxious, his occupation should be every bit as obnoxious, that the world would be in a little more balance if you were watching TV and heard, folks, this is your buddy in the hooker business with an important message you can't afford to ignore if you've been starving for that hoochie. I just had a major national convention cancel their appearance at the last minute, so now I got a hotel full of whores and they've got to hustle some ass. So we are throwing the price book out the window and we're going to pass the savings on to you. Domination, subjugation, shame, champagne, we have it all. If you got more than one fantasy, buy in bulk, you'll save even more. All of our horse have been inoculated against all major diseases. We use wear-dated Stainmaster sheets for extra protection.
My Lord, dude.
And we'll even throw in the condom for free. Whether you're straight, gay, bi, TSTV, get here ASAP. We are going to fulfill your fetish no matter what it takes, because at Buddy's Whorehouse, I don't care about making money. I just love to get people laid.
Yeah! That's what he said.
He gets the applause again, ladies and gentlemen.
I still got it.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm amazed that you can remember that word for word. My God, that's got to be 30 years ago.
Well, that was my bread and butter for a long time. That was my closer.
That's
Now,
some
it
good
should have
writing
been.
right there, dude. That's
It
good
was.
writing.
That was
That's good
no,
writing.
that was great. I do remember the Buddy Carpet part.
And you're right.
He
as soon
would
as you
say
said
that. He would say that. Buddy would say, I don't care about selling carpet. I just love to sell carpet.
No, there was a guy in Indianapolis that sold guns. He said, I don't care about making money. I just love to sell guns. It must have been like the... There was like a consultant who told all those guys to use that
So
line.
don't worry about making money. Just tell me like so what you got.
Yeah.
God bless you. God bless you.
Great.
Oh my gosh. So
Good job, Hoyt.
yeah. I'm telling you, he's and I'm talking now like he's not in the room. He's truly one of
Step
the most
out.
he's a freaking genius.
Yeah.
On so many levels. You really are. And I told you back then, Hoyt, when it comes down to the end of it, said it's your writing that will carry you. And then you started to write out in California. You started to write articles, and you continue to write articles and reviews. And you've got your T-shirt on. The New Beverly Cinema has been a big part of your life.
Yes, I have had the enormous privilege of writing for the New Beverly Cinema's blog since 2016. The New Beverly Cinema is an awesome repertory theater just outside of Hollywood. It is owned and supervised by Quentin Tarantino. It is all 35 and 16 millimeter, no digital. And they
Very cool.
And they play, not only just great, revival screenings, but every so often, they get new prints of new films. That in January, there was a whole month where they were showing all these brand new 35 millimeter print strikes of films, in theaters, like Summer of Soul and the Sparks Brothers. Guillermo del Toro made a black and white version of Nightmare Alley and screened it there.
Awesome.
So, and I have been writing for their blog, and Quentin has said that I am his second favorite writer after Kim Morgan, who just happens to be the co-screenwriter of Nightmare Alley and is now married to Guillermo. So, if I'm going to be second to somebody, it's somebody as talented as her.
But come on. I mean, if you were third or fourth, that would still be. But when Quentin says you're second, and you have now established a relationship with Quentin Tarantino on certain levels.
If I remember, wasn't it Basketball Jones? Is that how you met him or something?
That is one instance.
Yeah.
That is an instance where I had back in 2007 when Grindhouse was about to open, and appropriately enough, we are on is it the 2017 15th anniversary of Grindhouse? That when it was in preparation for that. This was before Quentin had the New Beverly. For years, the New Beverly was owned and operated by a gentleman named Sherman Torgan. He took over the place and started doing old double features there, and stuck to it in tough times, and it's legendary his stewardship. But in 2007, Quentin took over for 2 months to play his favorite Grindhouse movies to pump everybody up for Grindhouse. And one of the movies he played was the sketch comedy movie Tunnel Vision.
Love that movie. I saw that at the drive-in.
I own a 35 print of Tunnel Vision, so and
Hoyt
I also
you own a lot of 35.
I do.
prints.
I own about, I think, 30 full features in 35, and probably about 300 trailers, along with ephemera like snack bar ads and stuff. I
Important
love
stuff.
having that.
It's
in
like
my
a vinyl
hands.
collection or whiskey
No,
or
I'm
books or
telling
anything
you,
else.
If we as filmmakers needed to get something, Hoyt would be the guy to go to. If we wanted something from those years.
Or if you're trying to track down a movie that's been out of circulation, I'm the guy who might know where it's gone.
A guy. Hoyt is the guy. When you say I know a guy, Hoyt
He's
could
the
be
guy.
the guy. Hoyt could be the guy.
You're my guy.
Yeah, if I am the only person who can keep track of what happened to the Embassy Pictures Library after it got piecemealed in 1986. I mean, you need a flow chart so large you would have to teach a lecture at the Learning Annex to keep track of it all. But I can. So
Yeah. I mean,
but
Okay,
to finish your story. So he was programming Tunnel Vision, and when Tunnel Vision originally came out, since it was a short movie, it had been programmed with a cartoon short, which was Basketball Jones with Cheech and Chong.
Right.
Basketball Jones!
I got a Basketball Jones!
And I had a 35 print of that short.
Wow.
And at that time, I wasn't, we knew each other, but, we weren't, palsy-wowsy or anything. Not like we are now. I've never been to the house for dinner, so that's
coming.
the gauge.
It's going to happen.
That's no knock. That he can have whoever he wants. So, and I can feed myself.
I bet he's eccentric and wears robes and things. I
don't know. We'll
But
find out later.
but I told his people that if you're gonna show Tunnel Vision, you gotta show Basketball Jones. I've got the trailer right here.
Yeah.
And so I loaned it out. And then about a month and a half later, I am outside a bar in downtown LA, and he's out there, and we've met a few times, and so I say hi, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know you." It's like, "Yeah, I loaned you my print of Basketball Jones," and that was you.
Nice.
And we closed the place
That's
after
awesome.
that.
Nice.
So
that's pretty.
That's
goddamn
great.
Cool.
And that's what's so cool about, like, you talk about being in LA or any city, just being in the right place at the right time, just doing it, grinding.
The fact that and I'm not over exaggerating the relationship. You've pretty much, like you said, I haven't been to his house for dinner, maybe someday, but the fact that you can have open conversations with him, Hoyt could be one of the few people who can compare Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to Hot Summer in the City.
yes, one of the recent
and say it to Quentin.
Yes, one of the things I wrote for my blog that I am very proud of, and I am especially proud that he approved of, is I wrote a very deep essay about comparing elements of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to one of Quentin's favorite adult movies. Because first off, it should go on record, Quentin is not a huge fan of adult movies. And he worked in a pussycat theater when he was in his teens. He had dropped out of high school and he needed a job, and he got a job at a local pussycat. And for those of you who don't know, the pussycat theaters were porn theaters. They were like the AMC of porn. They were like in almost
Before the internet.
They were like in all the major cities, and they were really, well-kept places. But, they had great bumpers. But he did not like working there. He's written in his books like, the one time I get a movie theater job and I don't want to watch any of the movies. But there is one adult film that he really likes, and it's called Hot Summer in the City. And it's from 1975, and there's dispute over who directed it, and I go into that in my essay. So I wrote this really thoroughly researched essay about the making of Hot Summer in the City and certain elements from that movie that directly or indirectly affected Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I should mention you can see my hands in.
Yeah,
you're the projectionist, right?
Podcast.
Right.
We did mention that in the last podcast. Those are
My beautiful knuckles.
Those are Heuck's knuckles.
And so, but I worked very hard on this, but I did not, pull the trigger on it until I got his approval, because I figured that he would, be supportive, but not every film director wants their $100 million movie compared to a really angry mid-70s porn film.
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I am not going to name the director in question, but for comparison, I wrote an essay comparing a movie that I really enjoyed to not even a porn film, just like a mid-60s quasi-adult film, what would be considered adult at the time, and, talking about how it was, subverting audience expectations, coming in for one thing and getting another message. And when they actually watched the film in question, they started subtweeting me hard and roasting me for ever making the comparison. So I learned my lesson that I've got to be careful about who wants to have their stuff compared to trash.
Right.
Yeah.
That I happen to think is not trash, but actually of substance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's an insecurity there because Quentin, I think, to your point, realized that it might be trash on the surface, but there's a lot more depth there.
Can I ask you one question? And I don't know if you can answer this or not, but is he really is he really going to wrap it up as far as being a director? In your opinion, let me say that when he gets done with this, whatever the next film is going to be, is that going to be his last film? Is he going to wrap it up? I don't see
He's
it.
not that close. He's close to our age, though. That's the
I
thing.
know, but still,
Can he come out and say it?
there's so many. Look, close to our age. You don't think you have 10, 20 years left of
That's
creativity?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well-
you are. So you're saying, yeah.
I would refer back to something he said about the time that Pulp Fiction came out. That even when Pulp Fiction came out, he was being interviewed, and he said that, look, when I first got in, I wanted to be like Fassbender. It's like, yeah, I'm going to just crank out movies and, I'm going to, die of cocaine before I'm 40. I'm just going to have this huge repertoire. And then after Pulp Fiction, he was saying, making movies is tiring. It's, exhausting. I want to be able to enjoy myself. And, now that he's, married and with a child, I think, he's probably going to want to be able to enjoy what he's earned.
Okay. So
And the
maybe
fact that he doesn't need
Well,
to
he
be on
pours
the
himself
treadmill
so
if he doesn't
much.
want to.
Okay,
It
well,
is.
all right. Then I will just say it. Maybe if he doesn't, after he gets done and completes his last film as a director, I don't see him ceasing to write.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That he won't walk away from film. He will likely not direct again, but he's obviously still going to be, supporting film in all
Right.
manner of other
True
ways.
Yeah, but in
romance,
10
you
years,
write
he could
true
say to
romance.
himself,
Romance, yeah.
I got to tell this story myself.
Go
In
ahead.
10 years, whatever it would be, his kid's in college and he's got nothing but, swimming in the pool and hanging out.
Right.
He wants to do something, just do something.
He'll-
Well, something that he has talked about in interviews is the fact that, he wants a good resume, and he does that. What he does not want are bill-paying assignments.
Right.
Because, even our beloved Coppola has done stuff to get the bills paid.
Mm-hmm.
After he blew his wad on One from the Heart, he had to, just do a bunch of films, and a lot of them are quite good, but they were not passion projects for him. It was like, okay, I have got to pay off the creditors,
Right.
or that.
So he doesn't want to be in that position.
Yes, he does not want to make a film to pay for college or pay for alimony or pay for a house.
Okay.
Passion project. That's it.
But I still think he's going to write. I still think that
Well,
down the
you
line
can't.
there'll be something penned by Quentin
Yeah.
Tarantino.
He's got to be in the habit of doing that. So
And
Yeah.
he's so-
I
he's
don't-
such
I
a
don't
big
see
brain.
that brain of his stopping.
It's just like all of you guys. I mean, you're always gonna, to the day you die, you'll be writing and coming up with
Yeah.
ideas
Yeah.
and scribbling
Yeah.
down
It's just,
notes, and
yeah,
it's in our blood.
to do it, to keep creating. I'm going to shift gears for a second, Hoyk. Okay? I'm going to go from all of your many talents that you are currently using as we speak. I'm going to focus on your life a little bit. There's been some significant changes in your
Yes.
life that have brought you back to Ohio on a regular basis. This had not been the case the last time you're on the podcast, but since we last spoke in this particular format, your mother passed away.
Yes,
And you inherited her home in Cincinnati, Ohio.
my childhood
Your
home.
childhood home, which I find just a slight touch of the ironic in that you are so knee deep in the 70s
Mm-hmm.
and some of those films and that genre of films and that period of films, that you actually inherit a house that is still very much intact and depictive of the 70s.
Yes.
So you go to your mother's house, and a lot of people would have said, I inherited my mom's house. I live in LA. I'm going to sell it and just be done and move on, but not you.
No. And part of the reason is that in LA, in all the years that I was struggling, I still pay rent. I don't, own property out there. Even with the reserves I have, I'm not sure I would want to blow that much money just to own property in LA. And the Cincinnati house is paid for. It's not mortgaged. It's not, I don't owe anybody a red cent on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's mine, free and clear. And also, it's a house as opposed to an apartment. And I have a comfortable enough buffer under me that I can afford to take a couple months out of the year to just enjoy having that space.
Is there emotional attachment though to it as well? Because this is something that that I don't always know and don't always dig into with you. I mean, the surface that is Marc Heuck as a creative person, I know, I love, and respect. But I never get the opportunity to dig a little deeper into the emotional side of you. That seems, over the years that I've known each other, to have been somewhat. We've had some intimate conversations about a lot of things that stay between you and I. Okay, but when it comes down to the emotional part of things, when you talk about your mother and your father, and I've met your father, and I have some of your father's artwork down in the poker room as we speak.
And he sends his love, by the way.
But go send it right back to him. He's a delightful man. But I never got the opportunity to meet your mother. So what was she a creative person as well?
Well, my mother never really took my creative aspirations seriously.
Okay.
And I think the one of the lowest points of my life was that when I was about to start high school, I desperately wanted to go to the School for the Creative and Performing Arts in downtown Cincinnati. I had a cousin who had graduated from there, and he's now a grip on a lot of big budget Hollywood films. We still see each other from time to time. There's other notable alumni. Sarah Jessica Parker, Carmen Electra, came from this school. Went to a few plays there, and this is where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to be in movies from the 4th grade onward, but she was not into it. to the point where I had to audition in secret. And I got accepted. And she still said no. In fact, she was furious that I went behind her back and auditioned for this school after she had already made it clear that she did not want me to go there.
Why?
Oh,
And in your opinion, thinking back and looking, because it's interesting, why parents make certain decisions for their children and stay very adamant about them. Why do you think it was the case? Because your father was a creative person.
yes.
And I know that your parents divorced.
Mm-hmm. My parents divorced in around they split in 1977. And at that time, it's still kind of a new thing.
Right.
We still had to have organizations like Parents Without Partners.
Right. Yeah. And did you? And when your parents split up, you stayed with your mother.
Yes, she got custody.
She got custody.
And I had a limited amount of visitation with my father, and she was, so angry about the split that even when I was given the opportunity by the court to ask for more, I didn't, because I didn't want to upset her. So she had me in thrall for a while. And I think now, as an adult, I do not know a large amount of what my mother's life was like before she met my father. What I do know is that she had lived through World War II. Her parents, her father was Italian and her mother was French. When she was a girl, they were living in a part of France, and they had a restaurant business which was, closed down because of the war effort, but also for a stretch of time, there were people in the resistance who had thought that because her father was Italian, that he was collaborating,
Sure.
and put him in a prison camp. And she would go to visit him and wear, wooden shoes. And consequently, as long as she was alive, she always owned a lot of damn shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that did a number on her. And I know that when, very little she's told me herself. Most of this I've gleaned secondhand from other people, like my father. But my father has said that when he met her in the Navy, he was, he was staying in Naples, where she was living with her parents at the time. And she was, so done with Italian men. They're, look, Italians are the kind of guys who say, this is my wife and this is my mistress. They don't give a damn. And she was just thinking, no, I'm just going to stay with my parents the rest of my life. I'm done. And when he met her, her parents were like, get her out of the house. Take her dancing. Go. Damn it. So I think she invested a lot in my father. And then when the marriage fell apart, she was, she felt kind of devastated because, one, she had moved to America after marrying him. And then after I was born, she moved her parents over. So they pretty much left everything, to support this marriage and to support me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that, one, she had this sort of practical mentality, the idea of, a life in the arts is not a practical way to earn a living.
Okay, now we're getting to
That's
it.
a different. Yeah.
We're getting to it.
Two, she was, just after I was born, she started getting ridiculously Catholic. Just like, used to smoke, drink, and tell dirty jokes. And then, just before I was born, it's like, oh, well, I have to be a serious housewife now, and I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to, toe
Pray
the line.
the rosary. Let's go.
Exactly.
Very conservative. Right.
Yeah. So, I couldn't even say ass around the house. So it was a very sort of repressive kind of environment.
And anybody in the arts is degenerate, right?
Let me ask you this: if she was fighting so adamantly and was so furious when you wanted to pursue a career in the arts, did your mother have a thought process or an idea as to what you should have been doing? If she was going to be so adamant and say, I don't want you to do this, and I'm going to say no and negative and so forth, was there something in her mind that said, I want my boy to be fill in the blank?
I don't think she had a specific track in mind. I think her primary objection was that she didn't consider SCPA a real school.
Okay.
Then that I wasn't going to get a real education there, because she wanted me to go to a Catholic high school and get a real education.
Right.
Because bizarrely enough, she had for Cincinnati people, she wanted me to go to St. X, and to try and prove her point. It's like, oh look, they have a theater program. It's like, oh yeah,
So
the Drama Guild does 2 shows a year or whatever.
That's her bone. She's throwing to the bone.
That's the big Catholic
if you're
school.
gonna, look,
Look, you can do plays here.
Yeah.
So to an extent, she would like just to appease you.
Yeah, that
I know it. I
her
know it.
understanding of what the art world is like is so drastically removed from what it really is.
Right.
So, but the grade school I was going to, which was Annunciation in Clifton, they had kind of a feeder system to another high school called Roger Bacon. And we would take an entrance test. And so I took the entrance test. And she was working days, after she got divorced from my dad. So Roger Bacon was trying to call her at night to offer her a 3-year scholarship for me to go to Bacon. But because it was at night, she thought, oh, what high school calls people at night? This is a prank call. And she kept hanging up on them. Finally, they send a letter to the house on plain paper because they think I'm the one hanging up on them and that I don't want her to know that I've been offered a scholarship. Plus, the presiding priest from my grade school, who was a hardtack all by himself, calls me into his office demanding to know why I'm hanging up on Roger Bacon. So, long story short, I wound up going to Roger Bacon for high school. I will say this. Going to a normal high school like Roger Bacon really taught me how to flex my instincts in terms of how to talk to people.
Street smarts.
How to convey all the lofty ideas I have into a lingua franca that anybody can understand. And I think that's the same sort of gift that somebody like Roger Ebert had. That, Ebert would write about these really highbrow art movies, but he'd do it in this conversational style where people who would not be inclined might say, okay, I'll take a chance. Roger Ebert's a guy. He's not some aesthete. He's not some, highbrow snob. He's a guy who I can sit at the bar and, talk sports with.
I can trust him.
I'm curious. What split your parents up? Was it because I know your father's a creative person? He's an inventive person.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this
in
the last podcast. The Heucks invented the turkey.
Yeah, my great-grandmother, Matilda Eisenlohr Heuck.
Yeah,
I am the Paris Hilton of kitchen gadgets.
The turkey lacer.
You look just
you have
like
to go
her,
back
too.
to the podcast, but the Heuck family was responsible for the turkey lacer that is still for sale. And starts to show itself every once in a while. I see it out there.
Every Thanksgiving,
around October,
every
they start
Christmas,
popping
you
up.
See that bright yellow card with the faded turkey on it.
Yep. See, everybody's got one.
If you look in your kitchen drawer right now, you might see the name M.E. Heuck on something.
Yep, it's true. It's very true. So aside from being an inventive family, your father was a creative person. Now, was he a creative person when your parents married?
Initially, that the first 5 years of their marriage, he wanted to be a writer. He had been,
Did she-
selling short stories,
Was he selling them?
not with a large amount of frequency, but he was.
And did she and I don't mean to speak ill of your mom, but did your mom stifle him? Did she did she support him, or was
The
she
only way she stifled him is that she was such a stickler for good English that if he wanted her to type one of his stories and he wrote a character who spoke in bad English,
Right.
she would correct the English.
and which would totally change the character and
Yes,
the flow of the
and
story?
He's taking his
Right.
voice away.
Yeah, that she would
toys away.
she would not
Voice.
type ain't.
Oh.
She wouldn't that she was totally on the king's English. So I mean, I don't think she was intentionally trying to sabotage his creative efforts, but
course
she was very rigid about
So I go back to
Language.
the original question. What do you think split your parents up? Because I'm trying to piece something together here, and maybe I'll piece it together correctly in my mind, or maybe we'll go down a different path as well. But what do you think split them up?
Well, I think what split them up is that I think my father spent a lot of years being a people pleaser, and my mother was older than my father by about 8 years, and I feel like he was spending so much time basing his self-worth on how happy he could make other people. And
Wow.
at some, they went to marriage therapy for a while, before they got divorced, because I remember I went to what for me was a terrific grade school. I was going to this grade school program at what was the Children's Psychiatric Center near UC. And I was in second grade reading at a fifth grade level, and I was having a grand old time there. But I think they were taking counseling there, and as my father says, at one point, they'd be talking to a counselor, and the counselor would ask about, my mother's anger, and she would, pound the table and
blow
say,
up.
I don't have anger.
I don't have it.
I'm not mad.
There, yeah.
Whatever negative feelings she would have, she would just prey on them. So she just I think eventually he realized that he was someone who thought, okay, this isn't working, maybe we should get out. And she was just somebody with blinders on who was just like, I am going to make this work no matter the cost, because I took a vow before God. And because when my parents split up, my mother never dated again. She didn't go back to her maiden name. She stayed Anna Heuck until the day she died.
It's very similar to my mother. She did the same. My mother did the same thing. Interesting. My question is, and I'm wondering if when your father being the creative person that he was, and then when your parents split up, and then you decide to have creative ambitions, do you think that she saw your father in you and just said no? I don't want to raise the same type of son as was the man who left me.
I think that came into play. I think that because for the years that I was, from when I was born to when I first started getting my creative instincts, my dad was not a creative person. The whole thing is that he had been trying to be a writer, and then his father at one point said, you need to come back to Cincinnati and run the family business.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to put that aside and get with the program. So he put that. So I was not aware of any of that activity. He put his nose to the grindstone, and he was going to work every day. So, but I do feel like there was probably a little bit of the what we called in the 70s the Disneyland Dad Syndrome going on, where you're your dad is the one who lets you do all the cool stuff, while mom is the one who has to enforce the rules because you've got to get to school in the morning, you got to get your homework done, you got to eat your vegetables. So, and
you have all the fun with your father, but I'm here every day.
I mean, I still have that issue in my household. I mean, joke but no joke. You know?
Yeah, but you're still married.
Well, for now. For now. I'm just saying.
You're gonna, if you're smart,
I'll
never mind.
switch it up.
Another conversation.
Less
another
Homer
podcast.
Simpson.
Yeah.
So I think it was a toxic cocktail of youth trauma, blindsidedness, in the sense that, like, she was probably not happy in the waning days of the marriage either, but she was going to stick it out because that's what you do.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier than the unknown.
You offer up your suffering to the Lord. You say a couple rosaries and you transcend it. And and I think a little bit of just all these different elements coming into play where she just thought that it wasn't that she was against me doing artistic stuff, but she used the H word on me.
The H word.
Hobby.
It's a hobby. It's a nice hobby, honey.
Oh yeah.
It's a nice hobby.
You don't use the C word with a woman, and you don't use the H word with an artist.
Right. I mean, I get it. When I started doing stand-up, my mother, she didn't use the H word, but she thought, she never took it seriously as a real job. Mm-hmm. In fact, I don't think she acknowledged it until I actually got my first television appearance. And then, all of a sudden, people were going, Christine, I saw your son on TV.
Oh.
Well, all of a sudden now, so was there ever a point in your life where your mother was forced to acknowledge that, okay, this is what my son does, and did she ever accept you or accept it as what you were doing in life? Was there ever a moment where you felt confident and secure in the fact that your mom got it? This is what my son does. This is what he's going to keep doing. And did you ever come to those terms?
No.
Does that frustrate you?
Yeah, it frustrates the hell out of me. Look, in all the years that my mom was alive, I never once told her about any of my intersections with Quentin.
Because she didn't care?
Number one, she probably had no idea who he was.
For starters.
Number two, she'd be saying, why aren't you asking him for a job?
Right.
Yeah. It's like, and three, if she had seen any of the movies he was making, she would have flipped her lid.
Right.
Because, to give you a point of comparison, when I was doing Beat the Geeks, we once had an incident where a contestant got the best of me, and I didn't swear at him, but, I fake swore at him, blanked myself. And when that episode aired, she, when she saw it, she said, I cannot in good conscience recommend your show to any of my friends now because you swore on television and I taught you better than that.
Okay, but she watched the show.
My mom says that about Whiskey Business.
Yeah,
you say fuck so many times.
Well, she did not understand the fact that I was playing a character.
But she watched the show. Did she watch it regularly?
Until that point. She stopped watching.
Interesting.
So she watches until she sees something that she has an issue with.
Yes.
And then she stops.
Mm-hmm.
Not giving her son the second chance to come back next week and continue to be the delightful.
After that incident, she was, I had embarrassed her. She said, I taught you better than that. So, she could not throw her support behind, the greatest moment of my life, because she thought it reflected badly on her child rearing.
Right.
So it becomes about them and not about you.
Yes.
All right, that's a whole nother rabbit hole that we could go down.
Yeah. So part of the reason why,
which I commend people like you who say, but I want to do what I want to do.
So part of the reason why I am so bent on holding on to the house for the time being is that I don't have a whole lot of great memories in that house growing up.
That's what
So I am, in a sense, trying to create my own on my own to make up for lost time. That now that the house is all mine, this is usually the part in the horror movie where the guy goes over the edge and starts murdering women and burning them in a cinder.
Yes.
Where's the stripper pole going? Where's the stripper pole going?
But no, I'm going to play my records loud.
Yes.
I am going to eat bad food and beer, and I am going to watch dirty movies, and I am going to
Pee in the
walk
sink.
around.
No, he's not going to pee in the
Why
sink.
not? He could if he wanted to.
He could if he wanted to, but it's his sink now.
Yeah.
If it was still his mother's sink, maybe he would pee in it.
Alright.
But now it's his sink.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pee in my sink.
But you could.
I wouldn't want to, because then I got to clean it up.
You gotta piss on the dry side, on the dry side.
Look, my garage flooded in January while I was in LA, and a friend who was looking over the house for me called me about it, and to tell me, the water's so high I can see it from the outside, and then when I got into town, I found out that it had all receded by then, but it had soaked. Even though my car was locked up tight, it soaked the car so bad it shorted out the computer in the floorboards, and I spent almost $3,000 to get the car fixed, and this is a 2000 Subaru Legacy. I'm never going to recoup it, but that car has a tape deck and a CD player and a sunroof. I am not giving up that damn car.
Not going to do it.
They don't make them with CD players anymore.
That's right.
Hoyk makes a stand. But I find it interesting that whether you realized it or not at the time when you decided to keep that house and keep doing what you're doing, that I think we unconsciously, when it comes to our parents and the relationships we had with them, because I had kind of the same issues growing up with my grandmother. I lived with her for a couple years, and she wouldn't let me do anything either. And I had a very fractured relationship with my father. But as we get older, I find that it's interesting that we unconsciously, until we get the opportunity, and then we actually do it, try to exorcise certain demons from our childhood. So, in my opinion, it seems like you're keeping this house as a place that you grew up in. And am I wrong in saying that you want to make it a better place than what it was?
I think that's a valid assessment.
And to capture something and put memories into it that you didn't have.
Well, one of the things I want to do with the house is that since so much of it has not changed since the 70s, I really want to get a movie shot in there, because this is the kind of production design that most people pay out the ass to recreate.
Right. I told you when we were just hanging out the other night that you need to contact the Ohio Film Bureau.
I made the first phone call
and
to
tell
like
them
the
that
Cincinnati
your place is available.
Film
office and told, and they want me to. They said,
pictures.
just send us a couple photos. If we like it, we'll come and take more.
Then when they see it, they're going to shit their pants and go, "Oh my God, this exists in Cincinnati."
But one of the ideas I've had is I've been trying to craft a screenplay, a period screenplay where I would create
film it in that house.
an idealized version of the childhood that I wish I could have had. Instead of the one I had. Because when I first started really getting settled into the place, like I got a turntable repaired so I could play records again, and I have all of these old French and Italian 45s that my mom had when she was in her 20s and early 30s, and it's like really cool stuff like Charles Aznavour and
wow.
Edith Piaf and stuff, and it's like man, why couldn't I have known that Anna Storelli? What, that person I could have hung with. The one that I had to grow up under, not so much.
Isn't that interesting that you find that as we get older, and sometimes even after they die, I'm still finding things out about my father that like I said, I mentioned, I had a very fractured relationship with, and you get kind of pissed off. You get kind of pissed off as to why didn't I have that when I was younger? I don't know what the reasons are, because everything that happened to you or to anybody in this room, for that matter, as children, shapes us and makes us the people that we are today. Do you like the person you are today?
I still have a few things that I would like to correct.
Such as?
Well, from your introduction, I am always questioning, am I the person I am because of or in spite of my upbringing?
Okay, that's a valid question.
I
think it might be a combination of both.
Oh, certainly. When I'm sure most people have made this observation that when when they reach 25, they look at when they're 18 and think, God, what an idiot I was. And then when they reach 31, they look at when they were 25 and they think, God, what an idiot I was. And at some point, you have to realize you're going to be an idiot your whole damn life.
I mean, I can tell you right now, I was an idiot last week. As opposed to this week.
I think this morning.
Yeah, right. I don't go back decades. I go back weeks.
I can safely say that I regret fewer things in the last decade than I do in the ones that lead up to it.
And is that because you become more comfortable with you and who you are?
To a degree, but I think also it comes down to circumstances. The fact that I spent I spent almost all of my 30s and the early part of my 40s in a job that was a fractious marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I was assistant manager at the New Art in West LA, and it afforded me a lot of opportunities, but I was also just an assistant manager, and the person I was working for never got me and never tried to get me, and often, did not treat me like I felt I deserved to be. And sometimes it frustrated me to the point that I exerted myself publicly in ways that to this day, if somebody, meets me on the street and says, hey, didn't you used to work at the New Art? And my first words are, I'm sorry. I am so damn sorry.
I find it interesting that you think about some of that behavior, that somebody didn't appreciate you and didn't understand you and didn't get you, that it echoes back to childhood.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's stuff that's bred in the bone that sometimes surfaces back up again in our adult lives. I find that happening all the time, and I'm older than you, and I still get those moments where I think, where's that coming from? And I go, oh, yeah, I get it. I know why. I guess what's important is how you deal with it and accept it and either use it to your advantage, and in some cases, some people use it to their disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend, seem to me, even though we don't see each other on a regular basis, seem to be continuing to use it to your advantage, to improve your life and to get better at what you do, and still continue to prosper and grow as the artist that your mother never wanted you to be.
Well, I wouldn't say didn't want me to be, or more like, could not conceive being a viable way to live.
Which is it?
I
know it's a tough question. Which is it? Is it a mother's love that says, I don't want him to go down this path because it's going to crush him and destroy him when he doesn't succeed?
I I will say this: when I moved to LA, after a little bit of a feeling out process,
Right.
I talked to my mother almost every Sunday, in one fashion or another, either in an early morning phone call or in the depth of night. And I kept that appointment to a T. I did my damnedest to never miss that Sunday phone
Why?
call. Well, I mean,
Obligation or because you wanted to?
part of it out of obligation and part of it because I was becoming an adult and recognizing that, her parents were gone and she didn't have a large number of friends. And in her last few years, she was barely leaving the house. So, just out of compassion.
And how were those conversations?
Well, they were always a little stilted because I was not yielding a great deal of information about my life because I didn't want to go through the trouble of trying to explain it because I knew she wouldn't grasp it and it would, lead to questions that would frustrate me. And, she was one of these, people who if you, look, I have a loud voice. And sometimes when I get excited about something, I'm not even angry. I'm just, I get loud. And she would always
Trouble
take
controlling the volume of my voice.
Yeah, and so she would always take, a raising of the voice as being angry.
Sure.
It's like,
it's
well,
an Italian thing.
yeah, you're just such an angry person. No wonder you're still single. That sort of thing.
Wow.
So I was just trying to.
So you would self-edit.
Yes, I self-edited. I code switched. I did not share. I shared very little of who I really was with my mom. But what I was frequently getting from the conversations was that what she really just wanted to know is if I was happy. And
That's interesting.
Yep.
That's very interesting.
Because ultimately, I think that is what any parent wants for their child. And I think in the later years when I was struggling, because before things changed, I was barely covering my nut. I was deep in credit card debt. In the waning days of my job, I was very frustrated. And then when I was let go from my job and I couldn't find anything steady to keep up my standard of life and losing opportunities because of forces beyond my control, it was I'm sure she was thinking, how can he be living through all of this and actually being happy about it? So
Right.
I think that there was that ultimately it was her that in her own misguided way, she was thinking like, he's, going through these chaotic, pursuits. He's not going to be happy. So like, what I would like to change. I mean, look, I've been single. I've been single for too long. As Paul Goebel just beautifully roasted me, during his own roast. I am the only person to have gotten less pussy after being on national television.
There is that.
Chip.
Yeah, there is that. Well,
so-
what? It comes. It's an interesting observation that.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I don't have a special person in my life. I am now living comfortably, but I haven't achieved all the things that I would like to do. I'm in the position where, depending on how much of myself I want to put on the line, I could make them happen now, but it's more like I want to be able to get people interested in it as well, that I don't want to be the only one tooting my own horn,
Right.
which is why
Right.
it meant so much that when I first just sort of, casually waved my hand at B. Peterson and said, I want to do a podcast with you, that she said, yeah, let's do a podcast together, because I had plenty of other people who were doing podcasts, and occasionally they would have me on the show, but, nobody wanted to do a regular thing with me, and they have their reasons. I don't judge, but I was beginning to feel like, is this what Grodin felt like when Carson retired? I have nowhere to go now.
What happened to Grodin?
If you come back to Ohio forever, I will start another podcast on a regular basis with you. I don't know where it's going to go or what it would be about. In fact, I wouldn't even plan it week to week. I would just let
The Heuck Hour.
I would just let it happen. But it's interesting.
Yeah,
Sometimes, my friend, I've realized this as I've gotten older, and maybe it applies to you as well. Sometimes a parent's love is disguised, and sometimes that parent's love has a mask, and we don't always see what's behind the mask until later in life. When you said that she was concerned about you being happy, that might not have been something that she voiced or expressed on a regular basis, but obviously it was something that she felt. And sometimes we don't see that or feel it until it's too late. But the fact that you said in those conversations on a Sunday, even though you were self-editing and doing everything else, there was a part of you that you knew that you didn't want to upset her because she wanted to make sure that you were at least happy. That's a takeaway of something.
Mm-hmm. And, look, it was all those years of struggle in LA were frustrating, but I was where I wanted to be. If I was frustrated, it's because I felt like I was on the verge of losing it, of having to, come back to Ohio, not that it would be a terrible thing, because there would be a wonderful support system there, but it would feel like
Dino Tripodis. Good to meet
exactly. Exactly. But the idea, that whole that okay, here's the highbrow reference now.
Here we go.
The return of the native.
Back to Tom Hardy we go.
Yes. Of all the people who looked at Clem Yobright when he went off to seek his fortune and now he's come back to become a furs cutter, just like the rest of us.
This may truly be the first podcast that has footnotes.
Yeah. Tom Hardy.
That might be the first podcast that actually has to have footnotes.
He was in Batman. Tom Hardy. Or was that a different Tom Hardy?
Look for links in the description.
I'm going to tell you one more time.
John Stamos. Oh, wait. No, shut up.
No, not shut up. You know I tease. I have to. Comedy goes in threes for the third time. Stop talking. I kid. Like, we gotta wrap it up, buddy.
All right.
Is there anything? I know there's a lot of things we didn't cover. Thank you for bringing that lovely rye whiskey.
It was
with
really
you.
good.
It is really good
stuff. Yeah.
It is really good.
Now, because they do have the wine in Ohio, but they definitely don't have the
No.
Is there anything that you're working on right now that you want to tell people about, to keep an eye out for moving forward? If there is, yay. If
yes.
not, what is
yes. Coming up in late in May. One of my favorite movies that, of course, nobody else has ever seen,
of course,
is coming to Blu-ray, called The Return of Captain Invincible, with Alan Arkin and Christopher Lee.
Oh, wait a minute. I do kind of remember that movie.
Alan Arkin plays a disgraced superhero who's descended into alcoholism.
Yes!
Who has to come back and sober up because his old enemy has come out of mothballs.
I do remember this movie.
I have an interview segment with the director of the film on the Blu-ray.
Awesome.
And we have a really great, encompassing conversation about his career. So I'm very excited about that.
And the director is?
Philippe Mora.
All right.
He's an interesting fellow in that he's done really great documentaries, like he did a documentary called Brother, Can You Spare a Dime, about the Depression, where he used nothing but newsreel footage and musical numbers from movies of the era to show the contrasts. And then he's also done hilarious schlock like Communion with Christopher Walken, Howling 2, and The Beast Within.
I remember Communion.
Yeah, he's...
I remember the Howling 2.
Yeah, Sybil Danning's breasts expanding as she hulks out. So
okay, so that's coming out.
that's coming out in May from
in
Severin Films. I've for anybody from Australia who is listening,
we do have people from Australia that listen.
I recently did an audio commentary with another film scholar named Glenn Erickson for the 1973 gangster drama The Don is Dead with Anthony Quinn and Robert Forster.
You know what? I remember that movie as well. I couldn't get enough mafia movies. There was a period of time once The Godfather came out.
Yeah, neither could probably the
everybody started
the companies.
Bring me the head of Alfredo Garcia.
Mm-hmm. It's on the imprint label, so it's not. I mean, you can't just go to Best Buy and buy it, but if you go online, there are certain vendors where you can buy that disc. There's an American Blu-ray of Don is Dead, but I'm not on it, so you've been duly warned. And speaking of warnings, I am on the American Blu-ray of the Kino Lorber Blu-ray of V.I. Warshawski, where I talk to the director Jeff Canoe, but that Blu-ray is going out of print. So go to the Kino Lorber website and buy it now before it becomes harder to get.
Kathleen Turner, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What was the cheesy 80s
Sarah
Italian
Paretsky
movie
books.
or alien movie you were in? McGee.
The what?
Oh shit! Last time we were here, you were talking about. It hadn't been out yet. I think you were doing the commentary on McGee. What's the McGee? Fuck. All right, I'm gonna edit this out. No. There was like a alien movie where it comes down. It's like an 80s movie.
Oh, Mac and Me.
Yes,
McGee?
McGee?
No.
Come on, give me some credit. Mac and Me.
Mac and Me, yes.
McGee?
The movie.
All I kept thinking was some Irish alien that comes from another planet.
Hey, McGee,
Hey, mate. No, that's the movie where whenever Paul Rudd is talking to Conan O'Brien, he shows a clip from it.
Right.
Yes, I did a DVD, a Blu-ray commentary with the director for that release. That I think is going out of print also, so you would need to snap that up.
I just remember that was
did that gag
I'll warn you right now, apparently the lawyers at the studio snipped out a whole bunch of the stuff that we said, so if there are blank spaces that you encounter, that wasn't me.
That was not you.
Or I said something that I didn't know I wasn't supposed to say.
Oh man, well I hope somebody picks up on V.I. Warshawski. Those are great books by Sarah Paretsky. That's a great series of mystery novels that in this world of streaming that is right now, I can't believe somebody hasn't picked up that particular mystery franchise and ran with it, because it's a great character.
Everything else, yeah.
And that, because I'm a fan of her books, that should have gotten better, a better treatment than what it did when it first came out. All right, we got to wrap it up. Just make me one single promise, and I know I don't have to ask you. Don't change, goddammit. Don't change a goddamn thing about you, who you are, how you are. It's one of the things, as far as my I'm blessed that I have friends of all types from all walks of life, but you are one of the unique ones, and I treasure our friendship, and you know that these doors are open to you anytime that you are in town, close by, nearby, wherever. Even when you're in town, we don't always do a podcast, but you always give me the heads up that you're coming, and we have delightful long chats about so many other things that I treasure. I treasure from the time you had that long ass coat that I think you might still own. I don't know if you still.
I have a long ass coat. I don't know if it's the same long ass coat.
That's the one with the Converse tennis shoes, the black Converse tennis shoes, and I mean I can remember you from your youth until now, and that's the beautiful thing. Even though you've gotten older and I've gotten older, you are still Heuck. And
the enigma,
the riddle, the enigma. Stay the enigma, my friend. All right, and thank you for this beautiful guest bottle. This has been our guest bottle, the Francis Ford Coppola, Dorothy Arzner straight rye whiskey. Rye whiskey only has to be aged a minimum of 2 years to get put out there. This is a 3-year-old, and it was very tasty, very
And
lovely.
you don't have to say how much you spent, but is it in our $50 price range?
I don't
give or
think
take?
so.
Low.
It's only slightly higher.
Okay, fair enough.
And it's not readily available in Ohio, but there are a few online
I'd buy that.
dealers who will ship it
If you
here.
see it, buy it.
And like
His wine's great too.
I mean, pester the control board. Maybe if they get enough people, they'll have to stock it.
Jim Canepa.
I can pester the. If anybody here can pester Ohio liquor, it would be me.
He knows the guy.
I know a guy. I always know a
different
guy
guy.
who
It's a
I
different guy.
remember that.
You know the
Good.
liquor guy. I know the movie guy.
You know the movie guys. All right, we got to wrap it up. I want to thank Greg Hansberry on the audio side.
I've got a lot of editing to do. I guess.
No, you really don't.
No.
You really don't. And of course, I'm glad you put a microphone in front of you tonight, John
it was
Whitney.
fun. I got kind of quiet toward the end, but it was getting pretty personal. I didn't want to.
No, man.
Coming with
I
dumb
always
shit.
like when you interject. John Whitney is the quiet genius as well, that doesn't talk nearly as much as he should. Sometimes you should.
Yeah. Okay.
When I'm on, I'm on.
Yeah. That's right.
When you're hot, you're hot, and when you're not,
You're not. There you go.
Our guest has been Marc Heuck. It's been a delightful evening. My name is Dino Tripodis. Until the next bottle, see ya.
All right.